For years, we've been led to believe that achieving health and well-being requires more and more complicated formulas. New diets pop up every week, technology promises miracle results, and workout routines seem more confusing than ever. But what if the path to a strong body and a balanced mind isn't in the future, but in the past? That's the question that opens this video and invites you to rethink everything you think you know about wellness. Between the 1960s and the 1980s, what many people call the golden era of bodybuilding took shape. It wasn't just a time of impressive physiques, but of a very clear life philosophy. Training, nutrition, and mindset came together in a simple, coherent system focused on steady progress and long-term health. No shortcuts, no empty promises, just solid fundamentals applied with discipline. Icons like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Frank Zane are still remembered today not just for muscle size, but for aesthetics, presence, and physical longevity. They weren't training just to step on a stage. They were training to build a functional body, a strong mind, and a lifestyle that could be sustained for decades. That's where the real difference lies. While the modern world often separates health, aesthetics, and performance, the golden era saw everything as part of the same system. Body and mind were trained together. The goal wasn't excess, but balance. Not obsession, but consistency. And maybe that's exactly what's missing in how we approach well-being today. Today, the idea of wellness almost always comes tied to complexity. Diets packed with rules, fancy names, and extreme restrictions. Training plans that require apps, smartwatches, and constant metric tracking. But does taking care of your body and mind really need to be this complicated? Or is all this noise actually getting in the way more than it helps? The modern fitness industry sells the idea that if you're not using the latest method or the trendiest supplement, you're already behind. Every week, there's a new craze promising fast results, but very few that actually hold up over the long run. The result is frustration, burnout, and the constant feeling that you're never doing enough. This is exactly where the golden era philosophy stands out as a striking contrast. Back then, there was no obsession with total control. The focus was on training well, eating real food, and respecting the body's limits. Simple, straightforward, and effective. No miracle shortcuts, just fundamentals applied with discipline. In the golden era, training was never just about lifting the heaviest weight possible. The focus was on the quality of each rep, control of the movement, and the intention behind every set. The workout started in the mind before it ever reached the muscle. Each exercise was performed with full attention, as if that single rep were the most important one of the day. The so-called mind-muscle connection was one of the pillars of this training style. Feeling the muscle work, controlling the tempo, understanding what was being activated. It wasn't about moving weight from point A to point B, but about mastering the movement. That level of awareness made training not only more effective, but also safer. Another key factor was volume and frequency. Unlike the modern idea of train once a week and destroy the muscle, golden era athletes often trained the same muscle group twice a week. High volume, intelligently distributed, helped build density, detail, and symmetry over time. Techniques like pyramids, supersets, and the pursuit of the famous pump weren't used randomly. The goal was to increase blood flow, improve the connection with the muscle, and raise body awareness during training. That intense, full muscle feeling wasn't just about looks. It was feedback that the body was working the way it should. And if there's one area where the golden era was absolutely clear, it's exercise selection. Training was always built around fundamental movements. Squats, bench presses, rows, and basic lifts weren't seen as optional, they were mandatory. These exercises formed the foundation of any strong, well-built physique. The reason is simple. Compound movements work multiple muscles at the same time. They demand coordination, stability, and full body control. It's not just muscle that grows, but real strength, the kind that carries over into performance, better posture, and everyday resilience. The body starts to function as a complete system, not as a collection of isolated parts. Another essential concept was progressive overload. It wasn't about adding weight recklessly, but about moving forward little by little, always respecting proper technique and control. Every small increase represented real adaptation by the body, building a solid foundation that could be maintained for years, without turning training into something destructive. In contrast, Many modern gyms prioritize advanced machines and highly isolated exercises. While they definitely have their place, when they become the core of a workout, they often limit overall development. The result is usually a body that looks trained, but is fragile, dependent on machines, and with little carryover to real-life strength. That raises an important question. Are you training just to feel a specific muscle, or to build real strength? The golden era showed that the simpler and more fundamental the movements are, the more long-lasting the results tend to be, both inside and outside the gym. Now, when it comes to nutrition in the golden era, the first thing that stands out is simplicity. There were no apps tracking calories, no obsessive macro calculations. The foundation of the diet was real food, chosen with a clear purpose, to fuel training, support recovery, and allow steady, consistent progress. Protein came from direct, natural sources like meat, eggs, milk, and fish. These were nutrient-dense foods that provided everything the body needed to repair muscle and keep systems running smoothly. No miracle formulas, just the basics done right, day after day. Carbohydrates also played a crucial role. Rice, oats, and other complex foods provided steady energy for long and intense training sessions. Instead of constant spikes and crashes, the body received high-quality fuel capable of sustaining strength, focus, and endurance throughout the day. This approach clashes hard with today's mindset of extreme restriction. Cutting everything out, demonizing foods, and living in a constant calorie deficit might produce fast results, but it's rarely sustainable. In the golden era, the idea of eating well to grow made sense precisely because the foundation was balanced and nutritious. Another thing that was very different back then was rest. It wasn't seen as weakness, but as strategy. Sleeping well was just as much a part of training as lifting weights. Athletes understood that the body doesn't improve during effort, but during recovery. Without proper rest, there was no real progress, only wear and tear. Sleep quality played a central role in that process. Good sleep allowed the body to recover hormonally, rebuild muscle tissue, and restore the nervous system. It wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. Training hard and sleeping poorly simply didn't fit into that philosophy. This respect for recovery explains why many athletes were able to maintain high performance levels for years. Even with intense training, the balance between stimulus and rest helped prevent chronic injuries and physical and mental burnout, something all too common in today's culture of excess and constant rush. Today, many people try to make up for lack of rest with more stimulation, more caffeine, more supplements, more sets. But that only pushes the problem down the road. In the golden era, the physique started being built long before the workout. It started in the mind. Visualization was a common practice, along with absolute focus during each session. There was no room for distraction. When an athlete stepped into the gym, they were fully present, in every rep, every breath. Daily discipline was what held the entire process together. Training, eating well, and resting didn't depend on fleeting motivation, but on commitment. Even so, that discipline wasn't synonymous with constant suffering. On the contrary, there was enjoyment in the process, pride in the progress, and satisfaction in watching both body and mind evolve together. Unlike what we often see today, bodybuilding didn't consume a person's entire identity. There was life outside the gym. Friends, leisure, and personal experiences were part of mental balance. Training was an extension of life, not a prison that narrowed everything else around it. Another defining trait was humility. Excessive comparison with others didn't carry the same weight it does today. The real opponent was always the athlete himself. The goal was to beat your previous version, learning from criticism and turning mistakes into growth. One of the greatest legacies of the golden era wasn't just classic aesthetics, but longevity. Many athletes managed to maintain strength, mobility, and good shape for decades precisely because they didn't treat their bodies as disposable. Training was designed for the long haul, not just for a single moment in time. There was genuine concern for joint health, posture, and movement quality. Stretching, warm-ups, and technical control weren't seen as wasted time, but as ways to protect the body. That attention to detail allowed the physique to remain functional even as the years went by. Unlike the modern, use it and discard it mindset, the old-school philosophy valued preservation. The goal wasn't to push the body to its absolute limit, but to keep it strong, healthy, and responsive to training. That made all the difference when it came to avoiding chronic pain and early limitations. More than appearance, the focus was quality of life. Strength for everyday tasks, mobility to move freely, and endurance to maintain an active routine. The physique was a tool for living better, not just a visual business card. So the question is, are you training only for now or for the next 10, 20, 30 years? The body needs to be prepared to last, not just to impress. As all these pillars come together, it becomes clear that true well-being doesn't age. Trends change, promises change, but the fundamentals stay the same. Training intelligently, eating real food, getting proper rest, and strengthening the mind have always been, and still are, the foundation of a healthy, functional body. What the golden era offers us isn't nostalgia, but a plan that's incredibly relevant today. Simple, straightforward, and sustainable. No extremes, no dependence on trends. It's a path anyone can follow, regardless of age, fitness level, or aesthetic goals. In 2026, with so much information available, the real challenge may not be learning something new, but knowing what to ignore. Going back to the essentials might be the real advantage. When the basics are done right, the body responds, the mind gets stronger, and progress stops feeling like a constant struggle. The invitation of this video is exactly that. Take the wisdom of the golden era and adapt it to your own reality. Not to compete, not to impress anyone, but to live with more energy, mental clarity, and balance in everyday life. By the time we reach the end of this journey, one thing becomes clear. Trends change, but fundamentals remain. Diets come and go, methods rise and fall, but the principles that support true well-being stay the same. The golden era proved that lasting results don't come from complexity, but from consistency in doing the basics well. More than impressive physiques, that era left behind a legacy of balance. Body and mind were treated as inseparable parts of the same process. Training, eating well, resting, and maintaining a strong mindset weren't isolated strategies, but habits woven into a healthy, sustainable lifestyle.